Great. Well, I think we'll make a start. Good afternoon and welcome everybody to the webinar. Thank you very much indeed for joining. My name's Jonathan Grant and I'm the COO here at Koios and your host today. You'll see a screen here talking about SPIR. I refer you to our website and to our YouTube channel. The title of today's webinar is Material Master Data Governance for Your Capital Projects Made Simple. And this is the second in a series of our webinars on how Koios and SPIR can help you transform your spare parts interchange record process in all your capital projects, both greenfield and brownfield. And we're actually delighted by the number of people who've registered for this event, nearly 3 times the level of interest as in the first. So thank you all very much. A lot has happened since our first webinar in September, and we will, after this and over the next few days and weeks, be announcing several new partnerships, integrations, and other milestones for the business. These include industry-specific consulting and technology partnerships, among others. For the avoidance of doubt, if you want to transform your spare processes or know more about our pricing models, then do please get in touch with me or any of other members of the team via email, our website, phone, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, or schedule a meeting. All the details are out there. Okay, so the webinar will take the form of a discussion and demonstration of some of the key features and benefits of the data governance process in the SPIR module. But before we start, I'd like to introduce the team that will be on the webinar this afternoon. For the avoidance of doubt, it is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel within the next 24 hours or so. If you want to find it, just search for YouTube and Koios Master Data. You'll also find our explainer video there, which has already had several hundred views. First of all, I'd like to introduce Peter Eels, the founder of Koios. Peter is a seasoned veteran of the SPIR process and has worked on many such capital projects across the world. For those of you who remember, he's really the Red Adair of SPIR projects and has built that wealth of experience into the service. Peter also sits and chairs many ISO data quality standards committee. Matt Fancourt's just joined us. I didn't put him on the slide, sorry. As a product manager at Koios and has been with the company almost since its inception, he knows the product backwards. And Alakan Mensayatov represents a new generation of development talent, having a first-class honours degree in AI and machine learning, and he and his team are starting to stretch the limits and boundaries beyond anything that might have been possible even a couple of years ago. So given the new faces that we have on the call, I think it's worth doing a quick recap on the core of the service. SPIR is a decision support solution that gives our clients the information they need to make well-informed, timely decisions about their capital projects. The core is where we create the SPIR documents and where the OEMs enter the equipment and suggested parts data. And this initial data collection is the genesis of the many benefits that stem from using a cloud-based service that allows all the parties in the SPIR process to have access to the data from inception. The administrative, operational, and financial benefits all stem from this, and we'll talk about that later. While we're going to we'll show you the core to start with, we're also going to look at the material master and the data governance modules today. So let's start off. Alakan, can you give a quick reminder to everyone about how SPIR's core works and how easy we make it for our clients and users?
Sure. Thank you, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. Just to remind everyone, SPIR is a cloud-based web application that allows owner-operators to control, govern, and manage all parts of the SPIR process. Each organization who uses SPIR will have their own login, which provides them with their own tailored view of SPIR and projects they're involved in. We will log in now to a demo owner-operator to demonstrate the features today. So let's start by doing that. And on the screen, currently, we have an example of a project, including all of the project details, the relevant parties, as well as project milestones. The power of having all of this data in the same place is instantly recognized, as you can see the reports here that you wouldn't be able to see in the traditional SPIR process. And more importantly, it's in general, it's a live view of the data that as soon as something changes in the document, you will be able to see here and it will be reflected. And all of these reports are fully configurable, and you can really easily create new reports and add them to this dashboard. And if we move off the dashboard and go to the document page, here we're able to see that SPIR provides visibility of all documents in the project. You can see their completeness, you can see the parties, who was the last person to modify it and when. And let's actually have a look inside one of these. And as you can see here, this document page resembles an existing spreadsheet format, but we've brought it into the 21st century. And this document is split into 3 sections: the header, the tag records, and the spare part. Each one of these sections has its own audit trail, and you can see all the changes that have been done by which users and what changes have been actually made and when. And if we now try to edit one of these, we will be able to see how the actors go about filling in this document. And for example, if we go into the cell, we can see that it has been pre-configured and there is a finite list of values from which the manufacturers can take the data from. And all of these configurations and what properties are included in the spare parts are configured by data specifications. The data specifications, there are different types. And for example, if we look at the spare part details data specification, we can see that it allows the owner operator to configure the document template to ensure that consistent and high quality data is captured using SPIR. Importantly, manufacturers cannot edit this. So it's not going to you wouldn't have a case like you do in the Excel spreadsheet, for example, where people can fill around with the format and then create a myriad of quality issues later on. And examples of configuration that SPIR allows you to control is a data type. For example, you can create a list of values, you create different representations, or control units of measurement, number of decimal places, and things like this. Also, everything that is highlighted as blue on the screen is a concept, which means that if we click on it, we will be able to see all the alternative terminology, the abbreviations, and also really importantly, definitions. This allows the exchange of data without loss of meaning. So all the parties involved know what everyone is talking about. And also, as you can see, there are multiple different languages here. And this allows you to easily translate your specification into the desired language.
Alakan, that's great. Thank you very much. That was amazing. So Peter, turning to you, the title of the webinar is Material Master Data Governance for Your Capital Projects Made Simple. You have the scars on your back from many such projects. What is so revolutionary about the data governance module within SPIR, and what is the real problem that it's solving?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jonathan. Before I answer, may I also thank everyone for attending today. It's great to see the level of interest in our webinars. It's absolutely fantastic. So managing the spares process in capital projects involves multiple work streams, starting with data extraction and the data cleansing processes. Alakan's just demonstrated one of the key challenges that SPIR immediately solves. You no longer have to do all this extraction. The cleansing can be done within the system. And the other immediate thing it solves is you've got live updates. Immediately you can see the dashboard, you can see what's going on, and you can track the progress of the project. So when you've got SPIR forms, there's lots of hidden information, and to try and see that. Now, if you go back to the old process, when you start a capital project using spreadsheets, each SPIR line in all the hundreds of SPIR documents has to be extracted and collated into a single document. This document is then processed by a data team, that might be a third party. The data is cleansed in a 2-step process. First, the class name, often now modifier, is assigned to each record. And then, having assigned the class to each record, you have to hunt for signs of useful information, such as property values, that can be used to identify what the OEM is trying to sell you. In the SPIR Material Master module, we've added the ability for the owner operator to include their data specification templates in the SPIR collection form, solving one of the key problems of disconnected work streams. Let's be clear, just adding this functionality brings immediate and significant manpower savings. These disconnected work streams end with updating the ERP system with the results of the SPIR process into the ERP system via a data governance process. Again, we've integrated this work stream into the SPIR platform. So subscribing to the SPIR data governance module, you've signed up for a continuous improvement process that synchronizes the source ERP system and mirrors the workflow and the permissions of that system.
Peter, that's really great. Thank you very much indeed. So Alican, coming back to you, can you remind us of how the material master module assists with the cleansing of the SPIR's data from the OEM?
Cool, sure. As I've shown, and Peter talked about, the SPIR allows you to create data specifications, and these can be of different types. As we saw before, there are SPIR specifications, but also the raw material specifications, or as we call them, items of supply, or you might refer to them as noun modifiers. And let's take a look at one example. For example, this deep groove ball bearing specification. We can see here once again that the owner operator is able to control all the properties, all the values and representation that goes into this material. And let's see now how this data specification is embedded into a SPIR document. So if we go back to the documents page and view one of those that we've looked at before, for example, this, we are able to see that once the manufacturer has filled in a spare part class name that you have a data specification for, they will then be prompted to fill in the characteristic data. You can see here all the properties that were used that were filled in the data specification, and all of those that are highlighted as red are required fields. So the manufacturer will not be able to submit an incomplete document or incomplete material description. And why this is particularly important for deduplicating and in general data cleansing is because if you can see here in this column potential duplicates, we are able to provide you with intelligence in terms of, okay, for example, these two items have already been linked together, and you can see that, so on another document, there is the same item that is being requested. And we are also able to offer suggestions on potential duplicates. So for example, we're saying here that the manufacturer part number is the same, although the manufacturer name is a bit different. So maybe we're saying it's a potential duplicate, and we're just making a suggestion. And if you believe it is correct, you can simply click and link these items together so that the engineers will know when they're reviewing the document that this item also appears on this other document. However, if we now go to the Analyze page, here, for example, one of the reports allows us to see how many duplicates have already been identified across all the SPIR documents. We can also see in the summary a breakdown of costs based on spare part class name. And let's have a look at one of them. For example, since we've started with bearings, let's have a look. We can configure whichever properties we like here. This is an aggregated view of all the SPIR lines across all the SPIR documents. And if we choose something useful here, then now we can see all of the deep groove ball bearings in all of the documents. And let's make a simple deduplication. For example, these two items have already been linked together because they have the same manufacturer part number, they have the same manufacturer name, and you can see they have the same mapping number, so they have been linked together. However, let's have a look at these two. These two have different manufacturers and different part numbers. However, because we're able to see the material description that has been filled in by manufacturer to the level, to the quality level that you want, that you set out using the data specification, we're able to compare these material descriptions and say, okay, these items are actually the same, so why don't we group them together? And this is one of the simpler examples. However, and often is the case where the manufacturer has not given you the original part number, and he has provided you with an internal like reference number. And however, again, because they have been forced to fill in the material description, we're able to see and compare this to and say that it's actually the same bearing that is just being called differently. And we can also group these items together. And if we want to make a very simple purchasing decision, we can simply compare that, for example, the prices that are being charged for these items are 10 times higher than for this item, but it is actually the same item. So if I was you, I would just select all of these and say, okay, I'm not going to buy any from this supplier and any from this supplier, and I'm just going to buy 6 from this supplier instead. And just like that, we've saved tens of thousands of dollars.
Brilliant, Alakan. Thank you very much. And although we don't talk about it probably enough on our website, there's an awful lot of artificial intelligence and machine learning going on in there. It all looks terribly easy when he's flipping around the screen, but there's a lot going on underneath the bonnet, as you can imagine, automating these processes in a way that hasn't been possible before. So thank you very much, Alakan. So Peter, in your answer to my previous question, you talked about data specifications, not my strong point. So can you expand on the role of data specifications and what effect they may have on data quality, which I know is close to your heart?
Sure, Jonathan. Thank you very much. Yeah, nice needed. Yeah, and you saw a really good demonstration of many of the aspects of having strong data specifications. One of the key things in all these projects is deduplication, and without detailed data specifications, you just can't do the dedupe. Say that again, put my teeth in, deduplication. So as we highlighted earlier, that's one of the early steps in the data governance process. So data specifications, you can see, are fundamental to establishing the data requirements. So let's go back and what are data specifications and what's their purpose? So data specifications are a set of rules for describing items belonging to a class of product or a service. These rules are typically created by the owner-operator to collect information they need either to purchase or to use a product or service. So how well these data specifications are constructed, as you can see, has a significant effect on the data quality. Data quality failures are normally caused by free text or string fields being used for property values and units of measurement. If your data is going to be consistent, then it's not just classes and properties that need to be defined in your concept dictionary. The values of those properties and the units of measurement for those values need to be added to your data specification for your concept dictionary. I think somebody agrees with me. That's good. So in the ISO 8000 data quality series, the international standards, we talk about building data quality from the bottom up. And that's what makes SPIR module so well beaten. You've seen the example of that already.
Great, thanks, Peter. And we will be coming to questions later in the webinar. There is a little hand at the bottom of the screen. If you click that hand, we can see that, read the question and come back to it. So if you want to start pre-asking questions now, then please do. So we've got a little bit technical there, but I think I'm still with you. Peter, can you just talk about the advantages, the benefits of all this that it brings against a traditional process? Obviously, some people are using no technology at all, some people are using spreadsheets, some people are using access databases, but why does this change the game?
Of course, Jonathan, yeah. As we highlighted earlier, bringing together lots of separate work streams into a single platform. We're also giving users full transparency of the process, and you saw that with the dashboards at the beginning. We're providing live information on what's going on all the time. And we're building data quality into the process right from the start. That's one of the key things. So some of the audience who've worked, I can see some of the audience who's been in the automotive business before, and you'll know about the Toyota principle of they've adopted of getting quality right first time. And Toyota have proved many times over the value of adopting that principle. So subscribing to the various modules will dramatically reduce labor costs associated with any spreadsheet-based project. So we actually came across a document last week where one estimate was that it reduces such costs by up to 80% per project.
Great, okay. And people on the call and listening afterwards, and please remember this call is being recorded. I think a lot of people that registered will be listening to this after the event, the live event. But we'll be interested to know that we have a blog on our website. We have some a particular article on that 110 100. I call it a stitch in time, that explains the cost of not getting things right first time. So we've been talking, Peter, about the material master module. And what's the difference between that and the data governance module for a beginner like me?
Happy to, Jonathan. As we discussed earlier, data governance is that set of processes that ensure that data is timely, consistent, and trustworthy, all the things that people want in their data. So the SPIR data governance module is synchronized with the source ERP system and mirrors the workflow and permissions of that system. So this module allows users to map the SPIR records or new item requests to existing global masters in their source system. So the SPIR data governance module enables a second level of deduplication as an extra benefit.
Great, thank you. Now, Alakan, can you actually show us how this works, how the magic works?
Yeah, sure. As you can remember in my previous demonstration, we were just making a really easy purchasing decision where after we have deduplicated the SPIR line from SPIR documents, we were able to just choose the supplier that has the lowest price. However, this did not take into account any of your existing material masters, and this is what data governance module is for. So in this catalog page, you will be able to see all of your system records, depending on which system you can use. It can be multiple system records like SAP or Maximo. You are able to view all the properties that you want to import from the system. Like, for example, if you were looking at a SAP record, it could be short descriptions, long descriptions, and whatever fields you want. These are all controlled once again by a designated specification for a system record. And if you have a data governance module, then perhaps your purchasing decision is going to look slightly differently. If we go back to the analyze page and have a look again at the pairings we looked at before. So, for example, we can see here, if we take one of these that doesn't have so some of these already have a material master linked to them. But for example, this item, we decided that we want to map it to material master. And or in general, just check if we have an existing one already. So you can see here on the left your spare part details, and you can see that, okay, let's now have a look at, for this 6008, we can see that there is a material master existing in your system for it, and we can simply hit link and add this material master, add this spare line to this material master. And perhaps now, if we're going back to the analysis page, and instead of, for example, if we select pairings again, and so now, for example, instead of editing and saying, okay, I'm going to buy 2 of these, 6 of these, you can actually hit view full material master and then change maybe the reorder point in your material master to say, okay, it becomes 4 now that we're purchasing all of those. Well, instead of actually purchasing all of those, you just change your reorder point in your system.
Great. Thank you very much, Alakan. And we're covering a lot of ground here. There's a lot of detail, from the core through the specifications, through the material master, through the data governance. And now I think this is a really important piece, is Peter, you started talking about new item requests. So it's not just about managing the data that you've got, but actually moving forward. And what does that mean in the context of SPIR?
Oh, thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, we're obviously talking about a data governance system here. So in the SPIR process, each SPIR line is effectively a new item request. So the OEM obviously doesn't know what the owner-operator keeps in stock. So it's the responsibility of the owner-operator to check this. Alakan's just demonstrated that process. As we said, the data governance module is synchronized with the source ERP system, mirrors the workflow and permissions of that system. So what the SPIR data governance gives when deployed on an organizational wide basis is the ability for, say, a maintenance team in any plant to request a new item to be added to the inventory. A new item request then goes through a workflow of the cataloger checking the item exists in global records, because the requester might not have access to the global records. And then the new item request process ends up with setting up the item in the plant following the normal series of approvals.
Great, okay, Peter. And you also mentioned the data governance rules being important when integrating from multiple sources. I mean, Alakan just showed that there can be multiple system records from different sources. So presumably this must also apply when people are migrating from one environment to another. Clearly, there's a lot of activity across the whole world of ERP towards the cloud. The most famous right now is obviously SAP into the SAP for HANA, and we're delighted with our partnership with SAP. So how does all that fit into the myriad of technology we've talked about?
Great point, Jonathan. Any new system's not going to work any better than any old system if the data migration process just consists of moving the existing data into the new system. You must review the data, and you must review the data governance policies and processes. We talked a bit about last time about the old axiom, garbage in, garbage out. And that's exactly true for migration as well. So organizations spend millions of dollars and millions of man hours migrating to new systems. So if you are embarking on a data migration project, and I expect there's a few people on this call that probably are, now is absolutely the best time to review your data governance policies, processes, and requirements. It's also the opportunity to get rid of those workarounds that you've all built up over time. So as you say, Jonathan, there's lots of organizations migrating to SAP for HANA at the moment. And if these migrations are going to be successful, they need to look now at their data governance processes.
Okay. So Peter, that's all very well, but how do they really, there's a lot of complexity here. How do users get their data back into the host system?
Yeah, you're right. A massive amount of complexity in half an hour or so of discussion so far. But ideally, what we do is we set up a continuous synchronization of the data flow using APIs. So owner operators have different constraints on how data passes through their firewalls. Some will only allow one system to access a firewall. So we partner with companies like Boomi, who manage large, complex integrations, and we send the data from our system via API to Boomi, who manage the rest of the process. Other end users will be happy to let us use our system connectors, but others might just simply require us to supply a load file. But before we send the data back to the host system, we need to render the short description to fit the data type and field lengths of that client system. Okay, great. There's a lot of chat about short codes and rendering short descriptions. Alakan, can you show us how this works?
Yeah, of course. If we go back to our catalog and let's have a look at the one that we have mapped, so spare parts to the system record, and we can see that we have imported like the short description from the system. I mean, these are all the spare parts that are linked to it, and we can see that the short description here coming from SAP is of a very poor quality, and it's often the case given the limitations on different systems. For example, in SAP being like 40 characters and people trying to fit in everything they possibly can, and it's very inconsistent across different products. And apart from making a better purchasing decision by mapping your SPIRs to your existing material masters, we're also able to improve the quality of your system records in general. For example, we can also link to this material master. We can also link an item of production from our product data library. So if we look for this 6208, we can see, for example, that this is an item of production, and we can link this item here. From there on, we can create a governed item of supply that we will be using with combination with system record property values to generate a new description. In SPIR, we allow you to configure your rendering guide or configure how you want the short description to look like. and you can apply it on different classes so that they all have a consistent description. So for example, things that you can configure are what delimiter you want between the identifier and the class name, whether you want the class name or the identifier there, what properties you want to include. Do you want to include properties being abbreviated? Do you want the units of measurement and things like that? Because like I said, this item is a concept. You can add abbreviations, make them preferred, and they will be used for generating the short description. Now, let's actually try and generate one and see how that looks like. And as you can see, this has changed to using a abbreviation of the class, using the identifier, the part number, and including 3 property value tuples. We can see that this synchronization status requires sync. And if you are a user who has the appropriate level of permissions, then you're actually able to hit and synchronize this item. This, as Peter has described, depends on how the setup and the integration is set up with your system. So this might be just that we're sending results through the API and receiving back. And we can say that now the data here in our system matches the data in your home system. You can also manage all of your system records here, for example, and you can see which ones are out of sync. You can either synchronize them all in the batch, or you can go and synchronize them one by one, or view the audit trail of what has changed in each one of them. And like I said, you can control the users who have access to do things like, for example, synchronization. And in general, you can create custom roles, or you can use ISO 8150 predefined roles to assign permissions to basically control what they can click on, what they can't. Literally, you can control everything. And yeah, we at COIS take the security very seriously. I think also one thing that I forgot to mention in the previous demonstration is that, for example, speaking about how configurable these reports are, one of the reports that you can, for example, want to have after you started doing the mappings is material master mappings. You can see, okay, that you want to be able to see the percentage of how many items have already been mapped and unmapped to material masters. You can also customize this by, I don't know, increasing the width, saying, and showing the legend on the right, and say, okay, I want to see this report in the dashboard. So hopefully this works. And then you can drag and drop this item and things like that. So then you simply hit save, and then you're able to see this report.
Great. Okay, Alakan. I think we're going to go slightly off piece now and do the Q&A a little bit earlier than maybe we thought. We're pretty much at the end of the proposal. There's some great questions coming in. I was going to do them in time order, but actually, as Robert Sheard asked the first and the last one, I'm actually going to start with his last one. This one's for you, Peter. The challenge in machine builders providing recommended spares will really provide manufacturers information, as this is a revenue stream. How can you deal with this before receiving the parts?
Good question, Robert. How are you, my friend? Yes, this is a perennial problem, and it's down to contracts quite often. And you know what we've shown here is the owner operator has the ability to control the submission of the document. If you don't fill the spare parts information in as is required, you can't submit the document. You won't get paid. That's the way to force it to happen, I'm afraid. You know, there will be some items that that clearly are OEM specials and they can't be matched. But I think you would have seen, as a few others on the call I can see would have seen, and Alakan demonstrated in this thing there. You know, frankly, OEMs make extraordinary amounts of money unnecessarily out of some of the spare parts that are common spare parts. That doesn't benefit anybody at the end of the day. So yes, that will the owner operators have to use their power, their purse to control and to force that to happen. But it's down to the contracts, it's down to the recommendations there. Our system allows them to do that.
Sorry, before we move on, as an extra thing to potentially add to that as well is one of the things that we're working on building in the background is that product data library that Alakan showed. So whilst this doesn't address equipment manufacturers or machine builders, as you said, providing incorrect information by linking a manufacturer's item of production that has been provided to us directly from the manufacturer to that line item as well, you can then bypass the descriptions that have actually given to you by the OEM and use the manufacturer's data to do that. So it's a challenge that we're aware of. As Peter said, contractual agreements can get around that. Also by in terms of actually providing at least some data, as Alakan said, we can restrict the OEM's ability to complete the SPIR based on a percentage completion of the required fields. And that doesn't necessarily stop them from providing absolute rubbish data within those fields, but at least it steps to improving that. And then the item of production could also provide more accurate data.
Thanks, Matt. And then Planet makes a very interesting point here. And we do have different levels of data in terms of data quality. That, of course, parts data can also be gleaned from purchase orders and invoices. Our preferred route is to get it direct from the OEM.
Yeah, so can I just add to that? So obviously,
cool.
One of the things that this process allows, we have this sort of logo that says shift left. And one of the problems of the traditional process is you don't see these documents until right at the end. And it's handover, it's all manic. You've got thousands of documents you've got to find, search, extract, do all sorts of things. What this whole platform does, it moves the whole process forward. A capital project takes a amount of time. If you're starting to get these documents early, everybody can see what's going on in these documents. You have time as the owner operator to actually put these actions into place, talk to the OEMs, and you're far more able to deal with it than you are when they've already been paid. You'll see in the documents 3 years after they completed it, and you've got no chance of doing it. So that's why the platform and what we call the shift left is so important to this.
Great, thank you. And Phil Walters, I thought I saw your hand go up, but I can't find the question. If you put it in the chat with the activities tab, I think it is, then I'll be able to see it there. Sorry, forgive me. I'm sure I saw a hand go up. Okay, so again, some great questions coming in here, and a lot of it around politics. Well, that was sort of politics, wasn't it? I don't mean that sort of politics. I think this one's for you as well, Peter. What have you found to be, this is from Anonymous, I don't have a name. What have you found to be the biggest mistake the companies make when it comes to data cleansing? Wow, there's a subject. You could write a whole book on that.
Indeed, yeah. Well, if companies are, if the question is an owner operator, a user sending data out to third parties, then I'll answer the question in that way, and come back to me if this isn't the sort of aspect that you're looking at. But if you send out, here's 100,000 lines, clean, tender for 100,000 lines to be cleaned outside of your organization, and you just send it away, and you get a file back, there's a number of problems that arise from that. One is there's no ownership. You've got people who have no idea of how you operate, no idea of your culture, and frankly, often no idea of what the parts they're looking at is. They're just effectively rearranging the words in your descriptions and trying to normalize them in some sort of way. And we've talked quite a lot on this webinar already about data specifications. And again, as we've demonstrated, one of the common problems that I've seen in the past is that the specifications have class names and they have a series of properties, but they don't have any values that you want back, and often then it's done in spreadsheets. You get a value and a unit of measurement into a single cell, and there's no consistency. And as said before, the problem is not so much is actually, whilst it is in the structure of the data specification you used, the detail is in the values and the units of measurement, and that's where the biggest problem comes when you're searching for equivalence and all the rest of it. If you just simple things like m/m, millimeters, all those sorts of differentials. Our system is designed with these data quality rules in place. I mean, I've done these projects before when you get data back and somebody has to then look through the data and define whether it's any better. And I've been on both sides of this process, and often it's just impossible to check these files and prove that you've actually improved the data quality and to get the people. So the key thing is change management. It's about getting a process, getting buy-in, and getting ownership.
Well, I don't know if you were reading the questions, Peter, but that's exactly the next question. How do you tackle the changes to processes and training that go around the application of the tools? This again is from Anonymous. I don't know if it's the same in Anonymous as before, but anyway, that's the question. How do you tackle the changes to processes and training? This is people, process, and technology, isn't it? But
absolutely, yeah. I'll give a shout out to a friend of mine, Danette McGilvery, who wrote a book about 10 steps in a project. I give a shout out because I actually wrote one of the sub chapters in that one, so I'm kind of a bit of a co-author. She's put together a really good guide on how to go through a data project. But one of the key things she talks about all the way from step 1 all the way through is change management. If you don't communicate every step of the way, then nothing happens. And one of the things that we took on board when we were building the SPIR product that you've seen is trying to give that information. Part of change management is supplying people with information what's going on, and you can see with the dashboards then we can see what's happening at an individual OEM level. We can see what's happening at product specification level, and it's all part of the communication that you need for change management. But again, I would say you've got to get buy-in, you've got to get the people involved, and the best data cleansing projects I've ever been involved with is when the people in the organization that's put the tender out have been heavily involved.
Great. And actually, Robert has come up with an idea I haven't come across before. Well, I have, but in a different world. And that is, and thank you for this, a sale or return agreement can give you time to analyze the spares and return ones you don't identify, which seems like a very powerful idea at contractual level. I imagine that would have to be.
That would be an interesting one. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Robert. Yeah.
A quick returning back to that previous question, and specifically with a shout out to the way we develop as well, is in terms of usability of a tool with respect to our tool, is that we are really trying to focus on usability really here, which is both accessibility, making things obvious how to work, making things easy for users to pick up, and processes that are obvious to follow. Obviously, it's a much smaller window than the overall change management, but a shout out to the way we develop is that we really try and put the user first and make improvements to make sure that our system is easy to use.
Okay, great. And another question from Anonymous. Great question. Do you provide consultation on the data quality management and changing the process and setups as well as the software?
Yeah. Do you want me to take that one as well?
Well, I would take it, but I know what I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as Jonathan said at the beginning, data quality is a subject dear to my heart. I travel around the world, with writing ISO standards, and as Matt helps me as well, we did a lot of input into making sure international standards are Thanks. Actually, can I just say on one thing here that what we're actually now looking at is kind of a management system standard around data quality. I think it's one of those things that's missing, and we're working on that. So yes, we can. There's actually there's a free checklist that you can ISO 8000 Part 65. If you just drop us a line, we can send you a free checklist that gives you a basic level of where you are. So I hesitate to call it a maturity assessment because it's not really set up like that, but certainly, you know, there's a free resource that's available that you can start them. But yeah, we can help people through, and especially if you obviously if you're actually subscribing to our services and buying our services, that's absolutely part of our setup and training.
Great, thanks, Peter. I knew you'd enjoy that one. And again, anonymous. I'd love to know who this is. But does your tool integrate with ERPs such that the entire process is automated? I know Matt would like to talk about APIs, but we are now integrated with SAP, but there are many other ERP systems out there. But Matt, do you want to talk about the way the whole thing's structured?
Yeah, of course. So short answer is yes. So part of the project configuration, we're making sure if the data governance module, which is the part that sort of is the integration with your ERP system, is one you subscribe to, would be part of that setting up of the ERP integration. So our web applications built with RESTful APIs and purposely so we can integrate into other systems, whether that's directly integrating into them in your particular setup, or we're happy to work with third parties as well who perhaps have already integrated into certain platforms as well. So yeah, completely flexible as to which systems to connect to, and if we aren't aware of that system or haven't connected to it before, then that's definitely something that we can do.
Peter, did you want to talk about our integration with SAP?
Well, SAP is obviously the most common system for certainly in the asset-intensive industries out there, and we've had some fantastic discussions with SAP since our last webinar, where they were very keen to invite us into the community, and hopefully in the next little while you'll see this SPIR product being advertised on the SAP product list. Yeah, they recognise that and as Matt says, that modern systems that are built on RESTful APIs are the way to go. Linking with the old SAP systems was painful, and hopefully, you know, that's going to make everything easier in the future.
Okay, great. Another one from Anonymous. Is there a limit on how many projects can be managed using your software? I can take that one. The answer is no. The answer is no. It's a multi-tenant SaaS platform that sits in the cloud. It can sit in any cloud. We happen to use Azure at the moment. We have used AWS in the past. If you want other structures like virtual private clouds, then we can talk about that. But essentially, it's built as a multi-tenant cloud. And the great advantage of that, Matt, is that when we make one change, everyone benefits or not.
Yep.
So I know you like that bit.
I was wondering what you were getting at there, but yeah, exactly that. So yeah, because we are a multi-tenant application and a web application, that any changes that we make that are benefit for any of our users are automatically shared with everyone. So yeah, you get the benefit of by subscribing to the software, using it as many projects as you want. And actually, one thing that actually would be useful to mention if you're talking about multi-projects is that depending on whether you were here in the first webinar, I encourage you to follow up on the YouTube channel for that, is that our data specifications can be configured on a project by project basis. So not only can you have multiple projects and there isn't a limit, each project can have different data specification setups for your SPIR specification and even materials really. But yeah, multi-tenant, as many projects as you want, and you get the benefit of new changes.
but also to be clear that if you're running multiple projects, you can do the data cleansing across multiple projects as well. Now, there's a certain sort of warehouse problem there because you've got to know where your parts are. But
exactly.
Cool. All right. And a question here from Andre Oerland. Andre, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, but thank you very much for the question. Are you currently in any way handling manufacturer or brand life cycle information yourselves or via third parties? Are you currently in any way handling manufacturer or brand life cycle information yourselves or via third parties?
PLM stuff. Okay, so that's a really good question, Andre. There's a lot of people out there at the moment doing PLM, and Jonathan made some reference earlier on to product passports, and you've also got these new environmental directives coming out where you've got to have various properties or certificates around environmental product data. So a lot of this is all coming together now. We can certainly integrate with people who are looking to add product lifecycle management things. And as Matt says, if they've got a platform we can integrate with, then we're happy to do that. But I think one of the big things that's happening around is around the digital exchange of data now. And one of the big advantages we have, and that's kind of how we see the product data library evolving in the future, is handling all these different types of data. The basis that the models that we've built the whole system on are designed to, as Alakan used the phrase earlier on, to exchange data in multiple natural languages without loss of meaning. And you do that because we create truly machine readable data through a series of international standards that are set up exactly to do that. And that's why, whilst you don't see that in the foreground of what we're doing, a lot of the bits that you did see form the basis of how that's done. You did see a little bit about the concepts, and you saw the multiple languages for one particular concept. And all these concepts are IDs, and they're exchangeable, machine readable. So we use the same identifier scheme as people like E-Class and the IEC CDD. So if you're familiar with any of those, you'll know how that data is exchangeable, and our data is exchangeable in exactly the same way.
To add to that as well, in terms of the manufacturing brand lifecycle, our general strategy is to work with manufacturers, for them to provide that sort of data as well to us in the product data library. Whether that's manufacturers of spare parts, whether that's like OPMs, or whether that's OEMs who are filling in your SPIR document as well. There's opportunity for them to load their equipment data into the product data library and make that available for anyone to use.
Great. And sorry, I slightly preempted a question here from Clayton Cooper. Clayton, thank you very much for your question. And it is, do you have any benchmarks or potential ROI by having a quality data governance in place? What is the cost of inaction? Here's a slide with some figures from work that we've done. But Peter, you might just want to quickly talk to this point about the sort of benefits that you get. You saw earlier in the thing, Alakan going through and deduplicating and coming up with procurement strategies and saving tens of thousands of dollars, but it really isn't reflected in this. Maybe we don't really talk about the procurement gains on this slide, but Peter, do you want to quickly talk to that for Clayton?
Yes, thanks for the question, Clayton. Yeah, but there's a lot of ways in which the platform saves money, and we've, as Alakan showed, that we have dashboards that show obviously the obvious savings where we're going through reducing the spend. In the next webinar, we'll be talking about the BOM, the M BOM, or the maintenance BOM piece module that we have. And what you'll see there is what we've done is that we've taken the processes that what we call what happens in the event of failure. So when a machine breaks, how do you respond to that failure, and what spare parts do you need? Now, for a single machine, across an enterprise in different locations, that response to failure might be different. So one plant might have the capability to repair it and will keep the spares. Another plant might not have that capability and will send the unit out for repair, so there's no need to keep the spares. That's another way in which we add even more savings to the traditional process. I talked about different work streams going on and integrating them into the platform. That's kind of where we do. In terms of some of the other savings, as I say, massive manpower savings in data cleansing. We're able to start all the processes earlier. We're able to force more people to federate, to bring all the data together. So yeah, and data governance in itself would pay for the cost of the system, but all the other savings make the ROI of the whole system very, very well, massive, really, frankly.
And also link back to your answer there to a previous question about the MBOM, the repair, the failure codes and things like that. We also provide consultancy on that.
Okay, and to that point, we launched last week. It's about to come up on the screen, I hope. You may have seen our pricing page, but we do have essentially a freemium model. We can't pretend that we can give it away for free forever, but it's a cut down version of the core for one project for people to really try this out. So we launched that about 2 weeks ago, and it's proving to being of incredible interest in the marketplace. And of course, we have a humble ambition to run all the equipment and spares in every capital project in the world. So nothing less than that. What I would say is, please pick up the phone, email, get on LinkedIn, let us know how we can help. We're here to learn as much as anything else. We need the feedback from clients using it more and more as they're starting to do. We've had a fabulous year developing out. The level of inquiry has absolutely gone through the roof, and we've got some big announcements coming out very shortly.